would take the opportunity to share this evening. We have not asked permission. If necessary, we will ask forgiveness, but we don't think that's going to be necessary.
This is not on the script.
Go on the road.
Yes, it does. We know this is not on the script, but we think your guests might enjoy hearing from us. Therefore, the sister of the bride will have her sisterly talk, and then the sister of the groom will likewise share.
How do these sisters get together?
You think we just met each other? You know, you can go online, and if they have a home phone number, there's only one Herb and Sarah Weeks in Mobile, Alabama, and I'm just
So we've been keeping it a secret.
We have.
You just sneak it. I have to read mine. On December the 18th, 1955, my world changed for the better. Not that it had been bad for the first 4.5 years, but still. Miss Helen Jackson Lee came into the world feet first, and by that I mean Fanny.
You know what, Sarah? Excuse me, but your mother can't hear. Maybe we should.
Oh, we have a mic.
We have a mic.
Right.
Crank it up.
How's this, Mom? Can you hear now?
Can you hear?
Okay. And I was the proudest big sister that there ever was. I remember being over at my grandparents' house while we were waiting for the baby to come and getting the phone call that it was a girl. Baby sister Helen came home from the hospital on Christmas Eve. Mother had propped a big chair next to the crib so I could climb up and see the baby whenever I wanted. On Christmas Day, my parents assumed that I would be chomping at the bit to see what the Christmas fairy had brought. But instead, they found me on that chair looking at my baby. I thought that that's what Santa had brought me. I was less than enthusiastic when Mother said, "Don't you want to go see what Santa brought you?" I thought I was looking at it. Our next door neighbors, the Shirleys, had been popping out a baby about every year. And Betsy, who was my age, loved to say, "Y'all can't come over and play in our front yard because the baby's asleep." I could not wait to be able to say that. I think I was more excited about being able to say that than anything else. And now that I'm a mother, I get it. I wish I had owned a bazooka when the popsicle truck would come around to our house at nap time every day. But I digress. Helen and I played together beautifully, but occasionally there would be an argument over something. Mother tells the story of hearing Helen at about age 3 yelling at me, "Taylor, top dat." Mother gently corrected her and said to ask me nicely. And her indignant response was, "But if I take that, I won't top." And she was right. We had a wonderful, uneventful childhood. We lived on a cul-de-sac and there were lots of children to play with. When I was 6 and Helen was 2, the baby makers moved. And our sweet friends, the Fies, moved in. Nancy was my age and Lou was a year or 2 older than Helen. They played together all the time. One day Helen came inside crying. Mother asked her what was the matter and she sobbed, "I wanted to play mommies and daddies. And we wanted to play Wyatt up." Well, it just so happens that Woo did end up playing mommies and daddies for real with Helen's college roommate, whom he married. And she will be there tomorrow, we hope. And what goes around comes around. When I was 8 and Helen was 4, Daddy's parents retired and moved from Dallas to Montgomery. Thursday nights were a treat for our family because Mother and Daddy would drop Helen and me off at Grandmother Helen and G-Pop's house so they could go to choir practice. Grandmother Helen taught me piano lessons, and G-Pop taught Helen her lines and spaces on a little musical chalkboard. We played in their yard, and we had snacks, and we took our baths in time to watch Andy Williams and then go to bed. I won't go into detail about the night I was almost asphyxiated by my little sister, because we are in genteel company, but suffice it to say they soon put us in separate rooms. And somehow, magically, we woke up on Friday mornings in our own beds at home. About this same time, another life-changing event occurred. Aunt Ethel, Uncle Bill, and Billy moved to Montgomery. It was like having a built-in little brother. Having both sets of grandparents and half of our aunts and uncles living in Montgomery was a wonderful experience. It was exciting when our Oklahoma cousins came to visit, especially when we went to the beach. On those trips down Highway 231, we may just have been the only family on the planet besides the Fisks who sang in 4-part harmony in the car, making up our parts as we went along. Who needed XM radio? One beach vacation was particularly memorable because it rained the entire week, and we had to resort to playing games as a family to entertain ourselves. This was in the day of 3 TV channels and no VCRs. One of the games we had brought with us was Racco. We probably played a gazillion games of Racco that week, and Helen did not win once. This was very unusual because she and Daddy are numbers people. They play Sudoku and they're slick. And Racco is a numbers game, but it's not as much skill as how the cards are drawn. So Jim, I've heard that your family loves games. If you ever ask her to play Racco, you're going to get the look. By the way, she won't draw straws either. There was one trip when we were driving out west to visit our Oklahoma cousins, and where we passed numerous chicken farms on the way. Helen and I started clucking, and we could not stop. Our very patient Daddy was this close to taping our mouths shut or putting us on a bus. But we still couldn't stop. Did I mention I was in high school at this time? Now, Helen sucked her thumb, and her lovey was her jammy. It was a piece of pajamas that was her footy pajamas, and she would put it in the refrigerator at night before she would go to bed, so it would be cold, and she always put it in her little tiny purse when she went to church. It was almost as worn out as Lee Helen's puffalump. But that's another story for another time. Helen was the sister who could eat anything, whatever she wanted, and still be skinny, and I was the sister who can spell. Somehow the fairness of this is lost on me. But if there's one thing that we were on an even keel with, besides our deathly fear of roaches and our inordinate fascination with toads, was music. Music was always a huge part of our growing up experience. At First Baptist Church, we were blessed to have so many musical experiences that both of us enjoyed, even though we were 5 years apart. From youth choir, reflections, ensemble, handbell choir, my sister and I shared our gift of music. Although there was a span of 5 years between us in school, we walked the same path at Samford University, singing in the a cappella choir and studying voice with the incredible Nora Owsley, who, Lord willing and the creeks don't rise, will be at the wedding tomorrow. After college, Helen and I sang numerous duets together in church. She sang Mozart's Alleluia at hers and my wedding. We were kneeling when she sang it during the prayer, and at least 2 of our wedding party mentioned to me that it looked like I was losing it during her solo. I thought about it, and I realized that although it may have appeared that to other people, I was breathing with her. It must have been subtle because it didn't show up on the video that I faithfully watch on our anniversary every year to prove that my husband did have hair and I had a waist. I know that I speak for both Helen and me when I say that we really miss our high notes. Not only is Helen an accomplished musician, but she's a psychic. When Herb and I found out the stork was going to visit us, Helen sent me a congratulatory card, and it read, "A lady once begat 3 triplets named Nat, Tat, and Pat. 'Twas fun in the breeding, but hell in the feeding, because there was no tit for Tat." I looked for that card. I can't find it, but I have it. And then she wrote, "Congratulations on being pregnant. I can't wait to see you with boobs. Love, Helen." Valentine's Day when I had the ultrasound. You know, the ultrasound that showed 3 heartbeats. 2 weeks later, I asked Mother to call Helen and tell her because, well, she was prophetic. She did. You know that card you sent Sarah? Well, it was. I was blessed to have 2 fantastic aunts. My sweet Aunt Ethels, who's here tonight, and our precious Aunt Dixie, who's with Jesus. Helen must have taken really good notes since the day she was born, because she has been the most awesome aunt to our babies. She saved my life on numerous occasions throughout their infancy and childhood, and has always been like a second mom. I did ask them to chime in a little bit on this. She and her nice niece are so much alike, it's mind-boggling. In the NICU, where the triplets spent their first 26 days of life, it's policy to rotate the different incubators by the window so that people that aren't family can walk by and see the babies. In the level 1 NICU, the babies are pretty much naked because it's just easier with all the monitors and wires to access them when they need to, you know, have something done. And when Helen arrived at the hospital for the first time, it was Lee Helen's turn in the window, and she was screaming her tiny little 3-pound head off. And Helen's comment was, well, I'd scream too if they had me in a window without any clothes on and everybody would walk by and say. Tyler had a very special way of making Aunt Helen scream. He delighted in jumping out at her from room to room, behind things, and I think he still does that a little bit. So Jim, she has a very strong heart because it stopped over 100 times when Tyler, and she always stays on her toes. One of Blair's favorite things to do was to surprise Aunt Helen by hiding his Beanie Baby rat all over the house. And it would scare her when she found it. But he really showed her how much he loved her the time he left his football teddy. It was a stuffed teddy bear that looked like a football, and you'd open it up and it was a little teddy. And he left it there one time until the next time he came because he thought she would like to enjoy it. Now, Lee Helen always camped out on her sleeping bag in Helen's bedroom whenever we visited. And one of their favorite games when they were little was to toss stuffed animals back and forth from the bed to the floor, from the floor to the bed, and go, wee, wee. The Christmas that my granddaughter, Anna Kate, was born, and she's about to be 13 this Christmas, so that's how long ago it was, Santa Claus came to Birmingham, to Helen's house, and brought Lee Helen this life-size stuffed leopard. So that night, a giant leopard flew in the air, and whee! Some things just never grow old. One of Lee Helen's favorite things to do with Aunt Helen was to go Build-A-Bear. And also, she can hold her own playing cards. So, tomorrow, my baby sister is going to experience her own life-changing event. And we will all be there to celebrate with her and her Prince Charming. I could not be more pleased if I had picked you myself. So he has already carved out his own special place in our hearts and lives, and I will be so proud to call him brother in just, not days, but hours, as you said when we walked in. So here's to you 2 lovebirds. Herb and I are really looking forward to many years of fun and adventure with you, and particularly getting our own bedroom back at the beach.